Good morning and welcome to my channel once again. Thank you for stopping by. Today I'm going to share with you a project that I did for a colleague of mine. He had some water skis that belonged to his parents, which were bouncing around in his garage, and he really wanted to do something special with them so that he could continue to share the memory of his mom and dad, who were avid water skiers. This makes me very nervous because I want to make sure that I do a good job and my work is reflective of the honor that they have for their parents. Here's the process for the design, including a quick snapshot of the plans I drew for him. I hope you enjoy. As always, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your friends. God bless, and see you on the next one.
Right at this point, what I'm doing is taking off the paint from one of the water skis that was, oddly enough, painted white with, I imagine, some marine paint. I'd never used this process before, but saw it on the internet, on YouTube, and went out and got a heat gun. It proved to be a lot easier and not as messy as using some sort of a solvent to get the lacquer and the paint off. Like it was just, it had aluminum bindings mounted to it, which caused it to oxidize, I guess. So it was kind of difficult to get that oxidation off, and it took a while. Right here, these are the cabinet doors. I don't have any video. Actually, I lost a bunch of video because I dropped my camera. I wanted to do some kind of a lap joint, so I cut these panels for the doors, and there are different sizes, and I thought it would look nice. And then that's the first time I actually did this type of frame for a door. They look fine, but I need to do some more practice with these type of doors to try to get that joinery better. Here's a process that I've used before, but not exactly in this way. I used to mix sawdust with glue and then create a putty and then fill gaps with that. I've seen other people do this technique, which is basically taking glue and forcing it into the area that you want to cover, and then while you're doing that, go ahead and create some sawdust and then just push it into the hole so you're sure that you're getting the right material into that hole to cover whatever you're trying to fill. It worked out pretty good, actually. I also didn't show a lot of the cabinet actually coming together, but this is a process that I use to secure the toe kick on the cabinet. It's just, drilling some holes, then putting a plug in that hole with some glue. That's why I surrounded it with masking tape so that the saw itself wouldn't scuff up the surface of this plywood. It's a real thin veneer, so I had to be real careful that I didn't destroy that veneer in any way. Right here, I'm actually gluing on a 1/8" strip of poplar to conceal the edges of the cabinet. I just thought it would look a lot nicer than to show the plywood laminate on the edges as you opened the cabinet door. And I'm just using wood glue. This is type 3, which is water resistant. And right here, it's green masking tape. I'm not using any clamps, just the green masking tape to hold it part on while the glue dries. I'd already glued this on previously, let it sit overnight so that it wouldn't move while I put the screws in. And this process repeated itself. Putting in plugs to hide the holes or the screws. I thought it would look a little bit nicer. One thing is that when you cut these plugs out yourself, or even when you get buy plugs, you want to make sure that the grain of the plug is going parallel to the grain of the material that you're using. It kind of conceals it more. You can still see it, but it hides it a little bit better if you just make sure the grain of your plug is parallel to the material that you're trying to plug. I'm installing these hinges, and they're made so that you can't see the hinges from the outside. And I did a couple fittings of these. I want to make sure that the door fit properly. I had bought some other hinges, but they weren't going to work out. These ones did the trick. They're just bought at Home Depot. I didn't order them online or anything like that. I'm sanding the back side of the cabinet doors. You can see one is already set on the cabinet. It's just I just pre-hung it. I'm going to end up taking it down and staining it all so I can get a consistent stain before I put a polyurethane finish on it. Right here, I'm having to just shave down one end of this cabinet door because it was just a little bit too tweaked and didn't fit flat on the cabinet itself. So I'm using this planer to take off just a little bit of material from one corner so that it would set flat on the cabinet itself. decided, because of the weight of the cabinet with the wine glasses sitting on top, that it needed to sit on something other than just, the bottom of the cabinet. It also looked a lot nicer, so I bought these cabinet risers, if you will, that are adjustable, so that if they find that they want to set this wine rack on an uneven area, they can adjust it in order to stop the cabinet from wobbling in any way. And in the end, they actually look pretty nice underneath the cabinet itself. When I drilled a hole, it wasn't deep enough, so I had to take the flange off and re-drill it in order for the screw to go all the way in. I didn't want to bore everyone with the staining and finishing process of the cabinet, so I did that off camera, and here I'm really reinstalling the doors, and I actually do this more. I guess I was just in a hurry to see what the cabinet looked like after both the doors and the cabinet itself were stained. One pair of skis actually had this aluminum plate at the end. I think it was put on by the manufacturer. It had the manufacturer logo on it in order to keep the ski from splitting at the end. And it was lacquered over, and then a logo was placed on it, and it didn't look very nice, so I went ahead and sanded it all down. And then I had taken off all the brass screws, and some broke, so I'm going to replace the screws, and this is that process of sanding each one. For some reason, after I got the plates off and I kept them together, and then when I tried to line up the screws, they wouldn't line up. And just luckily I was using just a little bit bigger screw than what was there originally, so I went ahead and clamped them together and re-drilled those holes so they would match up. I had to do the same thing once I placed them on the skis. Even after I drilled those holes, which were a little bit bigger, after putting one screw in, I saw that the holes on the skis weren't lining up either. So I had to put one screw in and then put another one, and then go ahead and re-drill all the rest of them to make sure that the holes were lining up with the bottom and the top flange. barrel bolts that I got off the internet. They came in a pack, so I got 2 packs. Unfortunately, I had to grind some of them shorter because I didn't have enough of the length I needed, which was a bit of a process, but it worked out okay. And it was pretty simple to do. I like the way they look. I didn't want to just put screws and glue. I wanted them to be able to take this apart if they absolutely needed to. So that's why I use this particular type of bolt. Here I'm putting together the shelves for the wine bottles, and I use the same process of drilling a pre-drill with the countersink for the screws, and then filling the screws with a peg that I cut myself, a chisel to finish cutting them, which I realize after doing this it's really not necessary, especially on this poplar. I could use the saw right up against it, and if I scratch the surface in any way, then I could just sand it down so that it's flush. So after I have the pegs in, then I just use a palm sander to finish sanding each one of these before I actually stain them. Right here I'm staining the wine bottle shelves. This is the only staining that you're going to see. I just used a Minwax stain from Lowe's, and I'm putting it on with a rag to try to get as even as a color as I can throughout the whole rack. As you can see, this process was over several days. I work on this project after school and on weekends, and we're at the tail end of winter here, so it is pretty cold in my garage. And in past clips you see me wearing any number of jackets and sweaters and so on, trying to keep warm. I am still wearing shorts though. I just can't get away from wanting to wear shorts continuously, even when it's cold. And people ask me about it at school because I'm walking into the classroom with shorts on. It's quite warm in my classroom, and from the car to the classroom it really isn't a big deal. Here I am putting on the shelves, and I guess I was a little paranoid. I did a whole lot of measuring to make sure that the shelves were level and they were evenly spaced. So this process took quite a long time. And I just used the barrel screws here also, 2 on each side. I was a little worried that the water skis weren't going to be stiff enough that it would wobble back and forth from left to right. But as it turned out, once I put the shelves on, it really stiffened up, and it is pretty stiff. There is no way that the weight of the wine bottles is going to make this shift one way or the other. So I was glad, fortunately, that I didn't have to do anything to it in order to stiffen up like a cross brace or something.